is episode 11 of the Kicking CASK podcast. My name is Laura Hattersley, and today we've got a special guest joining us, Jess, proud mum to little Fiadh. We're thrilled to have her with us as we dive into some heartfelt chat and even a few laughs. Enjoy. Hi Jess, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. You are our first CASK family mum to come on the podcast, so really appreciate that. If you could just start by telling everybody who you are.
My name's Jessica. Last name is Geoghegan. I am a mom and a wife and a mom of two. Fiadh is our daughter who has CASK. She is 3, going to be 4 in August, and I have a little boy named Tig, and he's 1. So we used to live in Canada. I grew up there, and we recently moved to Ireland, and that's where my husband's from. It's been really chaotic and hectic and crazy, but we're having a really good time. So that's where we're at the moment.
So Fiadh, she's your oldest. Yeah. And she has a CASK disorder.
She does, yeah. She has a very small amount of added genetic material on one of the X chromosomes. It's I've been through the paperwork and I've tried to figure out exactly where the mutation occurs, but I can't decipher it. So we've asked for additional information from our genetic counselor back in Ontario. And so far we haven't had any answer yet, but we're hoping to bug him a little more for some more info to get a little bit more detail on it. But yeah, so we had no idea in utero. We had no idea at birth, and it wasn't until the 3.5-month mark that we should have known. But we actually had a doctor miss her microcephaly, which is a massive red flag for CASK kids. A lot of them, that's the first thing that you notice if it's not caught before. So for us, it was pretty devastating at first, because we went to about, I'd say 15 months, is 15 months old, is when we started really noticing that there was multiple issues. And like I said, we kind of got referred at that point to a behavioral specialist, and somebody who deals with developmental issues as well as speech delay. And for all intents and purposes, Fiadh was doing really well. She's very robust, very healthy, very happy baby. But when he measured her head, that's when we realized how small her head circumference was. And he was blown away that the doctors had missed it before. So it was a bit sad. It was really intense at the time, but we're one of those families who got really lucky that don't have epileptic issues, don't have feeding issues, like to the extent that some of our other CASK families do. So in a way, we're really lucky, and in a way, we were very unlucky. So a bit of both.
Yeah, that diagnosis journey is quite tricky. I think everybody's got a different story, but quite often those stories come with mistakes, thinking, oh, what if, like we should have known earlier. So what were the first signs that kind of led you down that diagnosis path? What was it that Fiadh was or wasn't doing that gave you a cause for concern?
Yeah, so essentially, she was spot on with things like laughing and certain types of eye contact and facial expressions, and very social little girl, like really precocious and funny, and would giggle all the time. And so it wasn't until we noticed that there was no crawling. Sitting up, she always wanted to, but we noticed a little bit of a lack of muscle tone, and again, it was something that now I'm looking back, I would have noticed straight away. But at the time, it was just little tiny things, and being your firstborn, you have no idea what you're doing. So it wasn't until her first birthday, there was still no crawling. A little bit of, she would put a little bit of pressure on her hands, but that was it. And the doctor was like, okay, we do have to keep an eye on this. And I remember finally she crawled like 2 days after her first birthday. And it was just a few little strides, but we were over the moon because we had come to Ireland to visit her grandparents for her first birthday. So it happened here. And we were delighted and thought, oh yeah, this is great. But then shortly after we got home back in Canada, we were very quickly rushed to a specialist at the 15-month appointment because our doctor, family doctor, who had missed all the red flags, started to say, listen, she's behind in multiple categories. So we did have laughter and we had babbling, but it never surpassed, like, when they do the consonants, like the a, e, o, a stuff, it never really got any further than that. And we were told not to worry too much because loads of kids have delays and it's a very common thing. But I think looking back now, putting it all together, it would have been the lack of movement, independent movement. Even though she was pulling up to stand, she wasn't crawling. And so lack of movement, I'd say the babbling being so limited, and then there was no pointing. And that was a big one for us that we realized that was obviously a big deal. And it wasn't even me that caught it. It was a friend of mine who was providing childcare at the time. She would routinely go through a few things with the kids every couple of weeks. And at 15 months, she did tell us, Fiadh's a little behind. And we were like, oh yeah, we've talked to the doctor. He's going to possibly refer us in a few months if she doesn't pick up in a big way. And then finally at 18 months, we were referred to a pediatric specialist who did development and speech. And so when we went into him, that's when the worry started and like our story really started. So yeah, definitely just to recap, like lack of movement and the no intense babbling and no pointing.
Were you worried before then when you realized she was a little bit delayed, or were you quite optimistic and like, oh, well, there's this diversity of children and she'll be fine? Like all the kind of doctors do tell you at first, you always get that at first. I'm sure it's going to be fine. But then you've got two personalities. You've got the one who go, well, maybe it's not. And then you've got the other parent who's like, yeah, it's definitely fine. Which one were you?
So I think I'm a huge realist. My husband likes to err on the side of optimism until he doesn't have to. So I think for him, he was like, oh, she's just a bit this or a bit that, or, a bit slow or a bit reserved or, and then me, I was kind of like, what, she's probably okay, but let's just keep an eye. And so for me, like reading the developmental milestones, we noticed she was always getting there eventually, but it was always at the tail end of that month or that next month where the cutoff kind of was. And for me, because like I spent so much time breastfeeding Fiadh, bed sharing with Fiadh, like I thought, and a lot of people would say to me, oh, do you think she's maybe just a bit babyish because you're breastfeeding, or babyish because you're with her so much and you do so much for her? And I was like, no, not at all. Like, she was so bright and curious. I just thought she's just a bit behind. And I think that kind of reflects to who Fiadh is now, because she is a lot further ahead than a lot of the other CASK kiddos that we see. She does have a lot more milestones. So I think it kind of, her curiousness and her like verve for life just kind of pushed aside some of the worry, because she does power through quite a bit. But again, looking back, I totally see it now, especially with having a second kid. We were like, oh, wow, he's doing stuff that Fiadh still doesn't do. Like he's already pointing and choosing things. And, we have choice with Fiadh now, but it took years. So.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something only parents like ourselves can directly relate to. So the ones who didn't have any children and then their first child is born disabled or with some kind of disability, because you have no comparison, and you're a new parent. And it was exactly the same for me, and if you have that comparison, I mean, it's very hard. All children are going to be different. And I guess if they have siblings at different ages, but you remember, don't you? And it is quite obvious, like you say, when you know.
Oh, yeah.
But if you don't know and you're trying to look on the bright side and there's no professional necessarily telling you, there's a problem. I know I had my family when we found out she had microcephaly, and we then had to wait, to see the specialist, telling me, oh, she's fine. And like, she so wasn't fine.
Very clearly.
So I think everybody's guilty of it. But so how old is Fiadh now, and what can she do? How can she amaze us?
Yeah, so Fiadh is 3.5 ish. She's going to be 4 in August, on August 1st. So she is, I'm going to try not to get emotional. um, she is quite literally like the definition of joy. She just is the happiest little girl. She always has been very happy, very content with her lot in life. Like, I know it's terrible to say, but you know, there's a saying that I actually hate, is that you get the kid that you need, not the kid that you want. And in ways, I think that it actually did work for us in a nice way, but I think that that saying gets thrown around quite a bit. And I think people need to remember that, like, sometimes these things happen and they're terrible, and they're awful, and you feel really low about it, and that is okay. In our case, we're in that like upper percentile of Fia's walking. She's trying to run. She does run sometimes. She's climbing stairs. She climbs up on her bed. She has favorite shows. She points to shows she wants to watch. She has favorite foods, favorite people. She loves dogs, any animal really. But the best thing about her is that she loves crazy weather. So, like, if there's a thunderstorm or it's absolutely just pelting rain outside, that's what she wants to be doing. She wants to be out in it. So she's like our adventure kid. She goes everywhere with us. If we're in a waterfall, she's in the waterfall. If we're trying to hike a mountain, that's where she wants to be. So for Fiadh, it's like she just has this iron will, and she doesn't even know it. She just amazes us. Like, everything she wants to do, she'll just keep trying and trying. And where maybe a typical kid would get very frustrated, or I would get frustrated, you just see her in her own way trying to figure it out, and it is just amazing to watch. It's really, really cool. And now I say that, but like, I just know how lucky we are. Like, I know deep in my bones how fortunate we are. Because when we were going through our diagnosis process, I went back to work because I was barbering in Canada at the time, and my husband was off as he was waiting for his PR status. And so we were kind of going up and down with work because I was just getting a lot more hours at the time. So he actually stayed home to take over childcare for a while. Now, when that happened, when we saw the specialist for development and language, he had said to us, you need to prepare yourself for a Rett diagnosis, for Rett syndrome. And that shook us. We could probably talk about medical guessing later, and how frustrating it is when they throw terms at you that they can't actually prove or know. But Fiadh used to chew on her fingers quite a bit, and they were always in her mouth. And that's one of the staple hallmark signs of Rett syndrome, and of many other diagnoses. So for us, we spent about 8 months waiting for that MRI and the genetic blood work, just thinking, is this the last day she's going to pick up her teddy? Is this the last day she's going to say dada or mama? Or, she had stopped saying dada at that time, but she was still saying mama, and my husband was just distraught. It really took a huge toll on his mental health, mine as well. But I like to think that I don't know whether it's because I'm the primary parent and I spent so much time with her, and he was working full time when she was very small. So we kind of switched roles. And I think when that happened, it just became very real for him as well. And that's when it hit him the hardest. So for us, it was that kind of in between, the medical guessing, I don't know, it could be this, it could be that kind of thing. So that was the hardest part for us so far. And like I said, I'm so lucky. We're so lucky that everything's just been uphill, but going upward from that point. So
what would you say if a doctor was listening, what would you say to give them some advice based on, I think I know what you're going to say, but based on that experience, what would you be telling them what to do and what not to do?
That's an amazing question. It's tough though, because there's a part of me, like when we first found out that the initial doctor had missed so many checks and balances, obviously my husband and I wanted to march straight into the office. And I don't need to tell you what we wanted to do, but we were devastated by his lack of, I guess, like thoroughness. And it's not that the saying, like when you hear hoof beats, you should think horses, not zebras. Like I do empathize with the fact that our kids are so rare. I don't expect doctors to get it the first time. I really and truly don't. But to tell us to expect a Rett diagnosis, which is so devastating to families, even not necessarily in all cases more devastating than Rett, but on average than CASK. Rett is such a just devastating diagnosis to get almost in all cases. So like, just don't say anything if you don't know anything. I would rather a doctor look me in the eye and say, I have no idea what's going on. I'm so sorry. Let me point you in a direction to somebody who does know. The amount of times that we have had a doctor say to us, oh, she looks like, one time we were in a doctor's office getting her hips looked at and her feet looked at, because that was another thing that the doctors had said, oh, her hips are a little bit, they call them like malaligned, or her feet are a little flat. And that could be signs of a genetic disorder. It could be a sign of a developmental issue, or it could be hip dysplasia, or one of the more common things. And I remember going into the orthopedic surgeon and her sitting there and looking my husband and I in the face and saying, she looks a little syndromic, and doing that with her hand. And I looked at her and I was like, sorry, she's not a piece of machinery. Like, what are you talking about? And, in the moment you think, oh, okay. And you're like, this person has a lot more power than you. So there's that power dynamic that you're dealing with, and you're trying to seem like good parents and you want to be positive, and you're like, yeah, and you're trying to listen. And then we get into the parking lot and we're like, what a, what? And we're like, how dare she talk about our kid like that? That's horrible. And, in the medical field, you get really microscopic about things. And I do understand, but like the words that doctors told us, those sentences that you string together in an office somewhere, they sit on our hearts for months. And there's literally nothing we could do but hope. And if you pray, you can wish things away or to happen. And that's all we did, is we just sat and we talked and rolled the things we heard in offices and clinics around in our heads and waited.
Yeah, I agree. These words, and they don't just stay with you for months. Sometimes they stay with you forever as well. And I do think there is definitely a need for families like ourselves to be going into hospitals and educating doctors. And I do know they actually do want it.
Oh, wow.
So it's always worth, if there is a parent out there, to contact local hospitals. And like Rare Disease Day is a good opportunity to say, if you want to do something for Rare Disease Day, I'll come in and help educate and tell you my story. So, you could go in and tell that story. That's really powerful. That will make people remember. And hopefully anybody that listens to it would never use phrases like that.
I think it would be an amazing thing for them to just be more humble, be much more honest, especially when dealing with things that they don't know. Because it nearly ruined, I don't want to say it ruined our lives, but like it was really close to ruining our lives and our extended family. Like everyone was so worried for so long. And our case obviously turned out much more positive from a CASK perspective. And it might not have, but yeah, no, it's tough.
So tell me what it's like to move countries, continents, with two young children to start with. I mean, that's like an ordeal in itself, but let alone with a child who has, like you said, an autism diagnosis, and obviously has more individual needs and requirements than a normal 4-year-old. So what made you do it now when your children are so young? Maybe that was like that was why you did it now.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
What hurdles or what positives have you found from moving from Canada to Ireland?
So yeah, it was a lot. It was a massive endeavor. I'm not gonna be a shrinking violet and like take away from what we did. Like my husband and I are fabulous parents, and I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of our family. Now, like saying that, pat on my back, pat on his back, pat on our kids' backs, we could not have done it without our families. Like my family, my mom, especially, oh my gosh, like she's such a powerhouse, and she's so just always there for us in any way she can be. And then obviously my husband's family, I won the in-law lottery. Like my brother and sister-in-law are fabulous. My mother and father-in-law are absolutely incredible. They're such great people. And then beyond that, we have a collection of friends here. God, again, sorry. We have a collection of friends here in Ireland that are just out of this world. I couldn't have made better friends over here that my husband had from when he was little. So we've moved from one very supportive environment, family-wise, to another. But over here in Ireland, I'd say it's so much more holistically supportive. So the communities here are more designed for families. They're more designed with children in mind. And that in itself has been huge in, just the leap of faith it takes to move countries. So going back to like how we decided to move was basically when I got pregnant with our son, we got sped up through the process of diagnosing our daughter because of the genetic factor. My husband and I had testing done. Obviously, that kind of included Tig, who was still in utero at the time. So that kind of included him a little bit. And then Fiadh's panels were done as well. And so when all that was happening, it was rushed because I was expecting again. And obviously, I know it's a tough subject to talk about, but you do have to make certain decisions when you already have one kid with a pretty intense or severe disability. If it is something that's genetic and inherited, sometimes you have to make tough decisions when you're pregnant. For us, we had made our own personal choice that we couldn't handle two CASK children at the same time because of how Fiadh's level of severity. Like she wasn't speaking, she is nonverbal, obviously, with the autism diagnosis on top of it. So obviously we had said to ourselves, it is rare that it happens twice. We ended up finding out that we weren't carriers, so we were very happy. And then Tig obviously had a less than 1% chance of being a CASK kid as well. So we decided to just push ahead. And then essentially after getting the diagnosis and having a successful delivery and a very healthy baby, we were like, okay, I think it was he was 3.5 months old. He was born early April. And so when we had finally decided, okay, we're going to go, we left, it was the end of July. And the main reason for doing it then was because we wanted our kids to grow up here, just surrounded by more people. Like I said, the more holistic family-centered systems over here. There's more support for caregivers as well. A big thing in Ireland is like a carer's allowance. So I would be paid to stay home and take care of my daughter. Whereas in Canada, I think there's only one province that you can stay home as carer for like a family member or someone, even a child, and you get $400 a month, which is an absolute joke. I'm not asking to be paid like an SNA or like a carer in a facility, but if you're going to pay people to take care of these kids in facilities, it makes sense to just pay somebody to care for them outside the facility and take the pressure off the system. That's why they do it here. So for us, it was a no-brainer. It just made sense. I could stay home. I can still work part-time, 18.5 hours, I think they've put it to. And I think it's €625 a week, I think is the amount that you're allowed to make while also taking on a carer's payment. So it was a no-brainer. Like we didn't have to think about it. Warren always wanted to come back home. He missed everybody here. He missed the food, the beautiful nature that's like at your doorstep all the time. That was a massive reason why. And we love the town that we live in. It's, it's not super small. It's not super big. It's kind of in the middle. The schools are great. Like, yeah, it was really an easy decision. Now doing it is a whole different story. Packing up your house, all your stuff, saying goodbye to people. Even the flight, like we had three really great flights with Fiadh previously. She's been to Ireland twice already, and we took her to Alberta once as well. And she was good as gold, like absolutely beautiful on the plane. Slept the whole way, ate, watched a show. That was it. This time, totally different ball game. She's a little bit older, obviously. So, she was turning 3. And she screamed from the moment we took off to the moment we landed. Didn't want to go to bed, had gone to the bathroom a few times. And that's so awkward on an airplane when you have an older toddler that's like, can't go to the bathroom the way that kids her age usually can. So being in nappies still, that was so tough. Just trying to advocate for your kid, like even seat selection. I was trying to explain to who did we fly with? I think we flew with Air Canada on the way back this time. Normally we do Aer Lingus and we've never had an issue, but this time, when we were getting a hold of people and trying to figure out, who we were going to go with. And I remember calling, this time we flew with Aer Lingus as well. It was the Alberta flight we flew with Air Canada. That was a disaster. But yeah, this time, like the Aer Lingus staff, like they were great, but the seat selection process was really tough. We were being told we have to pay extra for things, and it was going to be like an extra $300 or $400 just to select the row that we needed with the bassinet row, because we had the like my son as well as an infant. And I remember calling and saying, listen, my daughter has a disability. She cannot be seated behind someone. I was trying to explain about the car seat that had to go into the plane seat because she couldn't sit on her own at the time. It was like too much of a hindrance, and she was able to slip out of the little lap belt. And because of her low tone and muscle tone, like her neck would be flopping to the side if she tried to sleep. It was a nightmare. So I remember calling and going through multiple people and up in management trying to say, like, this isn't a want, it's a need. And so eventually we did get our seat selection comped, which was so nice. But I just feel like there should be way more robust policies in regards to travel and accommodations, because you hear all the time these stories about kids and adults who are wheelchair users, whose chairs get broken on planes, who like nothing's ready and they have to be carried through an aisle. Like it's just the lack of dignity that some people experience going and traveling places is absolutely crazy. So thankfully we were okay, but yeah, it was not a fun flight.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I don't know how often you're going to be flying back to Canada, but yeah, my advice is it's not necessarily going to get any better.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been one of those kind of stories where, yeah, they promised us that the wheelchair would stay on the plane, accessible on the plane wherever they put it, and then of course it wasn't, and then it was taken away by the luggage handlers all the way the other end of the airport, and so we just had to stay on the plane. This is EasyJet. EasyJet are amazing, by the way, if you ever fly kind of locally. And yeah, and I think we were waiting for over an hour. So the plane couldn't go anywhere, so the staff couldn't really go anywhere. Somebody had to stay with us, and they were like, "Oh, well, they've got like a wheelchair, like a normal like chair on wheels," and it's like, we can't put her in that. Like that's not going to work. And yeah, they were trying to come up with all these ideas, like, no, it's really dangerous. So we literally just had to wait there until somebody went all the way, found the wheelchair, wherever it was, and had to bring it all the way back. It's like, well, we don't have any other option. At least it wasn't broken. So, it could be worse. But yeah, it's tricky. And you're right. I think airlines especially need to be a bit more aware. And the needs, like, yeah, you shouldn't have to be paying like $300-400 just to get a seat that you require, and it's literally, that's just a way for them to be making money. That's there's no other gross reason, is it?
It's so
yeah,
gross.
I'm really glad. I'm glad you fought for that and you didn't have to pay.
I'm like a dog. Like I am like a dog. There is nothing. And I know I have privilege that way. I know that I'm really outspoken and I'm confident. And, I own that. I know that that's something that I've worked at it over the years, but I also was born that way. Like, I just don't take no for an answer. And if I want something, I get it. It's not about being spoiled. It's not about being entitled. It's about standing up for like the bare minimum and basic human rights. And like, there's a lot more terrible circumstances happening in our world, especially in the last couple of years, and even now. But you can't, if you're a parent and your kid has additional needs, the buck stops with you. Like, you're the last one, so you have to say something. So I think you learn that really quick. That's the one thing I'd say to new families is, like, it's like, I hate this saying, but it's like a baptism of fire. Like, you literally just get tossed into the soup and you got to sink or swim. And I think that if more of us were more honest about how that feels, I think it helps our new families a lot faster anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, kind of families coming up, like, look at kind of the people with slightly older children, and we all seem to, well, many of us, I guess, may look like we have it all together, but we don't.
Yeah. No.
So maybe they need, we don't have the answers, but I think, like you said, one thing like we do have is that we've maybe become a bit more assertive and a little bit more confident for advocating for our children.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That's something that just hopefully happens, because you have to practice it, otherwise you're not going to get anything.
No.
So that's my son's favorite phrase at the moment is, "That's the way the world works, mummy."
Cute.
But that's it, isn't it? It's just the way the world is. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. It was really incredible, like, your story, and you're definitely one brave mum. So
are you. I can't
an amazing
tell you
mum.
Thank you. And I think that too, like, more parents, like, whether your kid has something going on or not, more parents need to take that into their hearts more. Like, you're doing an amazing job. It's okay to admit that you're fantastic. Like, no one else is going to get up in the middle of the night with your kid. No one else is going to do the nappy changes. No one else is going to mash up the food or change the feeding tube, or like all the complexities that come with having a kid, again, with something going on or not. Like, you're incredible. Like, parents are amazing. We do so much, and I know we get a lot of praise from some people, but from other sectors we get nothing. So I just have to say, like, and I looked up to you so much, Laura, when everything first started. I was in such a bad place. I was in such a dark place. And every time I messaged you, you had a little smiley emoji, or like just a little word of, encouragement, or you can call me or you can text me. Don't worry. Like, I remember how stressed out I was when I got pregnant with Tig, and I would, turn to you for advice. And so I just have to say, like, you have just absolutely blazed a trail for us, and none of us will forget that. You've done so much, so thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, but as you know, I'm English and we don't really like praise, so I might just have to cut that bit out.
Yeah.
You'll find out. So it's quite nice having a North American here to give us all a little bit more ego.
Yeah,
maybe it's needed. So stay here, stay in Europe, don't go back. We need you.
Yeah, definitely.